Boys Bible Study. This is a very special Halloween bonus episode. I'm here, Ash, and with me is
Scott.
And for this special episode, we wanted to introduce you to a very good friend of ours. You may have heard her voice singing the outro to every Boys Bible Study episode thus far. Our outro song is called Oh My God by the enigmatic pop singer who goes by the name Mary. And we have Mary here with us. Hey, what's going on?
Hello.
Hey.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Making your podcast debut.
Yeah, I love the pod. Long-time listener, first-time guest. Very nervous.
Sure. Oh no, we're gonna have a lovely supernatural conversation. Mary and I work on music together. We've co-written a bunch of stuff, including the song "Oh My God." But what are some other songs of yours that people can research?
You might have heard Devil's Night. Another Halloween song. So it's not too late to get that in on Halloween 2020.
I'm gonna put that one in this episode. I'll put that one somewhere. So people can listen to that.
Excellent.
Cool.
We've got Goodbye to Romance. Ozzy, who also, is gonna maybe come up a little bit in this conversation.
Possibly, yes. You're a big Ozzy Osbourne fan, is something I know about you.
Indeed, and he's a big critic of Aleister Crowley.
Oh, really?
Oh, he's a critic of Aleister Crowley.
He's a critic.
What's that about?
Indeed. In the song Mr. Crowley, like when you just like watch the video and you just, you're like not paying attention to the lyrics, you're like, yeah, satanic, devil stuff or whatever. And then you listen to it and he's just like, what did you mean? Like, he's like, this is bullshit. Like, the lyrics are like 100% critical and like not at all an endorsement. It's legend.
That's so funny.
Wow.
No, I guess now that you mention it, I never really gave it a deep listen, but that follows. I mean, as a Crowley fan myself,
'tis the season.
Yeah, that's true.
So since you're like a little bit of an Ozzy head, what do they call Ozzy Osbourne fans? Whatever that is.
Wait, is there a stand name?
I don't know.
I don't know.
The baby bats.
Since you are a baby bat, though, is he really like satanically oriented in any way, or is his stance, at least as far as you know, more along the lines of Mr. Crowley, where maybe he just thinks it's stupid?
I think he's a crypto Christian, is my hunch.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think this man is a Christian, and yeah, except that there's like one song, I was like in the car with my dad and he was like, have you ever listened to the lyrics of this one? He's like, the music's so good. He's like, but the lyrics are, they're troubling. And this song is called like Mr. Tinker Train and it's from the perspective of a pedophile.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God. Wait a second. How many of his songs are
Yeah.
Mr. Tinker Train, Mr. Coffee, I don't know.
Mr. Crowley, Mr. Anderson. So we are calling you here for a very sort of special bonus episode. Off the beaten path, we wanted to sort of just like, have a fun ourselves with a Halloween-related concept, do something a little different for the pod. And we decided to talk about the very popular 2018 horror film Hereditary. I will say right away that, like, this film is very much like, if you want to see it and have a scary time, you don't want to know what happens in the plot. So if that's something that interests you at all, then like I would honestly not recommend listening to this episode. Come back after you've seen the movie, because we're going to be talking about very specific plot elements, and we're not really going to do a full synopsis of it. We're just going to talk about it, assuming that we're all having a conversation that you've seen the film. So I want to keep that in mind. But we wanted to focus on just like our general like opinions of it and like criticisms of it. I'll just start by saying I think the movie's really fun. I do have some pretty sharp criticisms of it, though. And I will say, though, aside from that, there are some very specific religious and occult historical elements in it that it would be fun to spotlight. Even though this isn't a Christian film, we are a podcast that deals with religious topics. I've done shows on the topics of astrology before with a bonus episode I did on the 1938 film When Were You Born? So in that vein, let's start chatting Hereditary, and maybe a good way to open up with what is your general opinion on this movie, everyone? What do you think of Hereditary?
I loved it. I think it's great. It's like a 5-star movie to me. I hadn't seen it since it was out in theaters. Rewatched it again just the other night, and I couldn't believe how much of it I remembered, and still was effective for me. And I just think it's really enjoyable and really scary. And Toni Collette, who's always amazing in everything, is as good in this as anything she's been in.
Yeah, she's really good. What else was she in? She's in a lot of shit.
Muriel's Wedding. She's amazing in that. That was like her big breakout movie.
Oh, Little Miss Sunshine. Little Miss Sunshine.
And she was really good in the new Charlie Kaufman movie, too. That's name is escaping me right now. You should definitely watch it. It's really crazy that Netflix paid for that. Like, I know they just give prestige directors sign off to do whatever they want, but the fact that that is what they ended up paying for is kind of wild.
I love Synecdoche, so it's ridiculous that I haven't seen it yet. And even in my notes, I say tiny artworks best done in Synecdoche. I have that written down.
Good call.
Rarely do you see those the like monocle thing in a film. So
right. What do you think about Hereditary?
So I'm a hater. I'm a little bit of a hater. I do think it's really fun, and there are parts that I'm like, that I really like, but it set off my bullshit detector, and maybe it's because I was being initially reactionary to like the hype or something, because I already knew about it like going in. And I was put on the defensive because I kept hearing over and over that it's the scariest movie since The Exorcist, and like stuff like that. And I was just like, there's no way. And then I went in and I was like, well, indeed, it is not anywhere near as scary as The Exorcist. But yeah, I had some kind of, I don't know, my bullshit detector went off for a couple elements. And so, if Ari Aster is ever to hear this episode, I'm sorry, bud.
Hey, art is out there in the world for consumption and criticism. Yeah, I mean, anything I say about the film is going to be from the perspective of, listen, I can't make a film, at least right now. So that's why I have a podcast.
I'm gonna go off,
Yeah.
I'm impressed. He's a good, it's like there's a lot of like technically great things happening. Although I don't know, I'm a hater.
Sure.
I'm a hater.
I did see it knowing hardly anything about it and in theaters with very few other people in the theater.
That seems the best way.
Yeah, because I definitely am of the mindset where the more and more I hear about something, the more and more I'm questioning it before seeing it. So fortunately for me, I was not in that position when I watched Hereditary.
Very much so. It's just like, with discourse around any piece of art, especially one that starts to sort of build up a hype train, it's just more and more inescapable all the time. And certain pieces of art will just like develop this life of their own. Like, I don't know, this is pretty unrelated, but I was talking with my roommate about like Banksy yesterday, because like, I don't know, I would say that like I really hate Banksy. I find him to be like one of the worst visual artists. But it's like, would I feel that strongly if he weren't this like figure who's now like synonymous with the idea of street art and everything like that? If it was just like somebody who was showing at a gallery in LA, I would probably be like, oh, hey, that's cool. Whoa, a gun that shoots butterflies?
Right.
If you weren't being totally bombarded with people telling you how good something is or how important it is, like nothing makes me ready to question being told I have to do something.
Yes, or feel something. And
Feel something.
And the films of Ari Aster are very interesting because like they have sort of developed this like camp value and this like cult following among a certain type of fan. As a gay guy myself, I've noticed that gay guys seem to love these movies. I don't really know what it is. Like, I mean, they're very like aesthetically pristine, and you know, a lot of care is put into like the visual presentation of them. And I don't know, they also kind of deal with like fucked up family dynamics, and I feel like those two things combined, there's like a Venn diagram that's like catnip to gay guys. That's just my personal theory. So I don't know, it's just very interesting. Midsommar's like this too. I would have to say between the two movies I might prefer Midsommar, but I've only watched that one once.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
And I too have only seen Midsommar once, but I was like, okay, so I was, when we were talking about making this, you know, doing this episode earlier, I had not seen The Wicker Man, the original. And so I was like, you know what, Midsommar, you know, I don't know, I was just feeling like, yeah, Midsommar had a lot of like campy things that I was like really vibing with. Like, the boyfriend has like this awful blown out t-shirt collar the whole time, and it's just like this like dumpy loser, and I was like, that's so major. These dumpy outfits are absolutely legendary.
Yeah.
And so I was like on board. Just the collar, I was like, no way. But then I watched The Wicker Man, and I was like, wait, this guy just remade The Wicker Man, but he took out all of the religious tension and yeah, kind of like, and lost all of the avant-garde, you know, really, really challenging elements. Like, there's, I don't know if, have you guys seen The Wicker Man, the original?
Yes.
Coincidentally, I just watched it like 2 weeks ago on friend of the pod, Dom, does a stream on Saturday nights called Uncle Creature on Twitch with surprise movies, and he showed Wicker Man like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it's like fresh in my mind.
So did you like it? I mean, I thought it was
I loved
so
it. Oh my God.
amazing.
It kicks ass.
The songs, the musical numbers, they work.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell? Like, can I curse on this podcast?
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Yes.
Asks everyone
Yes,
on a podcast.
Yeah.
FCC's not watching.
I figured I could. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
But I don't even have anything to curse about anymore, except that movie is so crazy and so much fucking crazier than Midsommar could ever be. So that made me go, this Ari Aster guy, I'm onto you.
This is so wild to me because Midsommar has definitely, at least in the main film world that I'm a part of now, which is mostly like horror and the fantastic, Midsommar's very polarizing with people where they either loved it or hated it. And I loved Midsommar as well. And I don't really like The Wicker Man. I think it's kind of boring.
Oh my God. Whoa. Movies are subjective.
Yeah.
I know.
It's crazy.
No, I know.
art
It's
is
crazy.
subjective. I hate it. Can't we just figure it out by now? I don't get it.
I can't believe it.
Well,
oh my God.
I feel like the original Wicker Man is this beautiful combo of like Brigadoon and like I don't know, Midsummer or whatever. It's like, I love that there's something kind of like wrong about the original Wicker Man. Like, things happen and you're like, well, that didn't really need to happen, because
why is the main man, the old man, like, or the, you know, like the Christopher Lee character, like, like it literally, like his vibe is so cuckoo.
Yeah.
and it's never resolved, like, why this man is this way.
I really like that, and like I think that that's a spirit that's missing from a lot of films, Hereditary and Midsommar included. Like, how can I put this, because it's so like ephemeral, it's kind of hard to pin down, but I feel like nowadays movie making has become so meta. Like, in some ways we've really like mastered the form to the point where I find myself not often surprised by films made by like practiced filmmakers, even if there's something, really, I'm sure there's, I'm not nearly as well watched as like certain people. So I'm sure there's films out there that would be strong exceptions to this. But as far as like mainstream or even like pseudo mainstream, like Hereditary and Midsummer, I kind of miss movies where it just feels like there's something kind of like wrong about them. Like I would put Wicker Man in that category, where you're just like, there's like a whole half hour of the movie where you're like, I don't really know what's happening here. Whereas both Hereditary and Midsummer, they feel like everything is just so like, it's just so in place. It's just it's
neat.
Yeah, it's too a little too tidy for me. Yes,
all the it's like wrapped up in a bow, kind of. It's film school. It's USC's fault.
I do totally agree. Ari Aster is totally like film school brat, and like a lot of people are fans of his short films, and I don't really like any of his short films that I've seen.
No, man,
but they
it's
are
shock jockery.
Yeah, and they are like well made. Like he obviously like pulled off what he intended to do to an extent with those. But I think what works for me so much with both Hereditary and Midsummer is I buy in 100% with where they're starting at emotionally in both of those. Like seeing Toni Collette be completely devastated in Hereditary is like the biggest thing to me, and like makes all of it work for me. And then same in Midsummer when Danny, what's that actress's name? Florence Pugh, when she is like so just like devastated by her sister dying at the beginning, like I can feel that so hard, and like I'm totally in from there.
There is something to be said with the way he's able to capture like devastation on that level. I think all the acting performances are like some of the best parts of Hereditary, certainly since it's fresh in my mind. I thought that all of the main cast does a very good job. Alex Wolff as Peter. I could save him, I think. I could save him. He does an amazing job.
Yeah.
Gabriel Byrne is, that performance I feel like is so nuanced, and I don't know, I just feel like, I really, really love his performance in the movie too. And I feel like that's, for me, that like what he's doing in the movie, like really like makes me go like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But with that said, there is something that if you know more about it can kind of completely undermine Hereditary, which I think is where we're going with this.
Mm-hmm.
Which is that if you already are familiar with the spiritualism and the symbols, your bullshit meter might go off pretty strongly. So for me, who's like raised Christian, still thinks about Christianity all the time and the Bible and God and the Trinity and what that represents in society and everything. Anytime I see something the least bit occultish or like, we're working around God, I like love it. I eat it up no matter like how well thought out it is or not.
Right.
But Mary, I think Ash had said that you had an experience after watching it where you opened a certain book and were like, you can't just make a movie based on flipping open a book like this. So,
indeed. So, Ash, do you want to tell the story?
I'll start it off and you can finish it. But okay. So Mary and I were at my place recording vocals for a new track, and we were just talking, and we'd been friends for a while, but like it was on this day when we like both realized that we were really interested in like spiritual matters, and we were just like looking at my like various book collection. We did Yi Jing readings with each other, which was really fun. And I happen to have a copy of the Goetia. I would believe that's how it's pronounced. The Lesser Key of Solomon the King, a very famous book that has to do with ceremonial magic, which basically that means it has instructions upon which to conjure demons. Very interesting book. The copy I have has a introduction by Aleister Crowley. But you picked the book out of the shelf, opened up to, I can't even remember what page, and you
First
just like
page, just flipped it open. Like I just was like, what's this?
And you just like, I saw you kind of just like pause for a little bit, and you were just like looking back and forth between the two pages, and you were just like, this is Hereditary. So go on.
So yeah, so it's like we just cracked open that book. It's basically like the page fell open, and on one side was an entry for the demon Payman, right? And when I'd first seen Hereditary, right, I was like, Payman, huh? Where's what? I was like, what is this Payman? Because I don't know, my bullshit detector was going off. I was like, this is it's like I've seen Satan, I've like looked into satanic stuff or whatever. Anyways, so I was like, what is this? And then I open the book. It says Payman, okay, and I see that. And then right on the other page, just across the way, is a drawing for a completely separate entry of a person with like a bird head.
Yes.
And there was like one more element on there too. Oh, the symbol. And then there was this. It was like literally. I don't know if it's the exact same symbol.
Is.
Maybe you could. Okay.
It literally is. I'm looking at it right now.
See that? And so then I was like, this motherfucker really opened up this fucking book and was like, we got the movie, baby. He was like, no, everybody chill out. He was like, we got it. It's all right here. And it's like, you son of a bitch.
So there's a chance Ari Aster was in a similar setting. He's just like stoned in a room with another friend. Just flips open the Lesser Key of Solomon to the page that it most naturally opens up to, and built the movie around those two pages that you see.
Yeah, and that's so true, Mary. Because I'm literally, I have the book by me, and I opened up to page 30 and 31. And yeah, on the right hand side is the Seal of Paimon, which is repeated. You see it many times in the film. A couple times. The first thing that comes to mind is when you go into the attic. They go into the attic and they see like the body of Annie's mother, potentially Annie's mother, on the floor, and you can see the Seal of Paimon above it. And yeah, on the page just next to it, there's the demon Amon or whatever, who's not referenced in the film, but yeah, it's in the drawing by Crowley of this demon. It's just like a humanoid figure with a bird's head, like a sort of standard bird's head. And it's like, it's hard to not, even though that demon's not referenced in the film, it's hard not to like think of the part where Charlie, decapitates that dead bird and draws
all sorts of headless stuff. I feel like the germ for like the real kernel for that idea is right on that. It's right on that page.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amazing. So with that, because I was wondering about that watching Hereditary the other night with all the decapitation stuff. So that's all tied into those same two pages.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, if because what Mary's saying is that just the fact that it's like a humanoid figure with a bird head. It's like, although the head isn't severed in this picture, it's like referring to the symbol of like something's head on something else's body. And I feel like that maybe
this is a leap, right? We know for sure
he looked at the book.
He looked at the book. We know that he looked at the book.
Yes,
I mean, that we know. Yeah, we got him red-handed.
With the pigeon specifically, though, so that's just because watching it this time, I was like, that's a weird thing to do, but I don't see what this has to do with the movie with the pigeon head. But
case
obviously,
in point,
you just
he
have
had
to
to
be
shoehorn
looking at
it
those,
in.
Yeah, right. So you just had to be looking at those same two pages at the same time, and then it makes sense.
And can I just say, right, like the way that we learn who this Payman guy is and all this stuff. I mean, some of the clunkiest exposition I've ever seen. I mean, the majority of the information that we get about these people and actually what's at play is through either literally seeing it in books or having her go on monologues where she just explains in detail what's happening.
That is true. I didn't think
and
that.
I feel like
very
I'm
true.
I'm on to you, my dude. Because it's like, and then I was thinking, I was like, so what is actually happening in the present moment for the movie, right? And it's like kind of a lot of like empty jump scares that don't in any way relate to the reality of the movie. Busted yet again.
Yeah, and I think with that type of clunky exposition, which it definitely is, it's easy for me to ignore that because the like we were talking about earlier, the acting performances are so incredible in
Yes.
it. So
Right.
I'm just like experiencing it with Toni Collette, like, oh my God, what's on this page? What's on this page? But if they weren't good acting performances, we'd be like rolling our eyes so hard. Or I would be, I guess you were.
Or if you have a bad attitude like I do, I'm not gonna. Also, the first frame of the movie is an obituary text. I mean, like, talk about ham-fisted exposition. Literally, I mean, it's just like, bro, show don't tell, dude.
Well, and the other thing about the film is, so I will say, like, on first watch of Hereditary, which I watched like with some friends like a year after it came out, I think. I'm always late to watch new films, but like I didn't really have any spoilers, so I was pretty good going in. I would say this is a first watch where it is just like it's hard not to be scared by this movie. It is a very scary thriller. Like and however, I do think that, so like to contrast, like just on a general note, like I recently, like a couple weeks ago, rewatched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I believe is like, one of the best horror films and like maybe one of the best films ever. And, at that point I had seen it again. Like, I think Texas Chainsaw is like a great example of a horror film that, like, even if I know what beats are coming next, there's just something about the way it's presented and like the mystique that the movie creates that makes it like sort of surprising. But watching through Hereditary the second time, I think it's like a brilliant first watch. But I noticed when I was watching it the second time last night, like, they show, like, as they're driving to the party, they like show the telephone pole.
Okay, and how does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's like, okay, there's a telephone pole. I was watching it with my roomie, and he was like, I don't know, we had both seen it before, so we were just bullshitting, and he was like, man, this movie's scary. And when they showed the pole, and I was like, I was like, Chekhov's pole, Astor's pole, dude. If they show a telephone pole in the first act, then it was going to return 10 minutes later, also in the first act.
see, I liked noticing that stuff.
Yeah,
this time around.
It's fun. Like, I'm not gonna, but yeah, I don't know. I just think that both this film and Midsummer are, maybe better than like a lot of films, but there's still something that I don't know. I don't tend to gravitate toward films that are like too plot based. Like my favorite films, I usually feel like if someone described the entire plot of the film beforehand, I would still see it and be surprised.
Right.
Me and Mary went on a conversation about like our like gestural filmmaking as opposed to like story related filmmaking, and I think I'm definitely more of a fan of like the image and the gesture than like the writing and the story, if that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. Again,
and that kind of like dovetails like into like the text that I'm armed with, which is Man and His Symbols by Carl Jung. And
go off.
In the idea that like someone like David Lynch is working in like a purely working in a symbolic realm, and that's why these things, these images really resonate on a deep level, whereas the images that we're seeing in Hereditary, to me, fall more in line with what Jung would refer to as a sign, which is that. And I can pull up the text if we want to pause.
Please.
It's
Sure.
Me be tedious.
No, I would really like that.
Please.
Okay. So here's a quote. He says, "The sign is always less than the concept it represents, while a symbol always stands for something more than its obvious and immediate meaning." And I feel like that is really at play with Hereditary, especially since we found the source of the information, or that we found the source of the images. And he also talks about how when you consciously come to an image and then create meaning around it, it's not going to resonate in the same way as it would if it were to emerge from the unconscious. Like, for example, what happens in David Lynch films. Like, David Lynch doesn't know what the blue key is. And neither do I. But we all are like, that key, dude. You
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that was part of our, like, when we had our initial conversation that led to us planning to do this episode together. That seemed to be a really good point of contrast, because like David Lynch, by his own admission, and also it's just clear through watching his films, that he sort of goes into this other realm, this realm of images and symbols, and carefully pulls things out. And as a great example, we talk about Mulholland Drive. Okay, Mulholland Drive spoilers if you've not seen it, got to see it. We talk about the dirty man behind the diner, the mud man,
right?
And like that is a symbol that, I mean, obvious to say, but worth it in the context of this discussion. On its face means nothing, but in the realm of this like unconscious or subconscious or whatever, it just like strikes ultimate terror. And Mulholland Drive I've seen so many times, but like the scene when he's in the diner and he's terrified and he wants to go out and see what's behind the diner to confirm it's not real. I mean, that gives me chills just like thinking about it.
It's horrifying. It is so
it's scary every time.
Yes.
It's scary every single time.
Yes.
Like it does. I could see that scene 1,000 times and still be scared.
Yeah, right. Whereas like when I was watching Hereditary last night, it was like, oh damn, she's on the ceiling.
Because I think it's meaningless, not to be rude, but I just don't think that it's like, I think it's like, he's like, ooh, wouldn't it be scary if she was on the ceiling? People aren't supposed to be up there,
Yeah.
But and I don't think it goes deeper. I really don't think it goes deeper than that. But I think this is the film school talking.
Sure, and it's like, in a film like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I mean, it does that too, but of course it doesn't. We're playing in the physical realm of like chainsaws and freaks and like, the hot sun and stuff. Whereas Hereditary is telling, it's saying we're invoking this realm of magic and symbols. We're literally painting the set with various magical words or various sigils. It's invoking symbol in the most literal way, to the point where, as you said, it actually sort of regresses from the concept of symbol and turns into like a sign. It's like literally a sign, like painted on a wall. Yeah. And I think that, again, overall, I think the movie's fun, and it's certainly not a bad movie. I like watching it.
No, not at all.
But
yeah.
It's like I think that's its fundamental weakness, is that it thinks that it's concerned in the metaphysical realm, but it actually just uses like really broad brushstrokes to like to paint association with that, when it's actually just, it's not nearly as deep.
Do we think Ari Aster believes in God? Go.
No.
No, this man is godless. We have a godless man here.
Yeah, I think he's probably had some, I assume anyway, has had some like real like emotionally devastating moments in his own life.
Oh,
I don't see how you could pull off certain things otherwise. But I think based on what we're just saying, even with how it's signs and not symbols, I think he's probably likes the idea of occults and is like curious about them. And probably has a bit of an obsessive personality. I mean, how else could you be a successful filmmaker?
Sure.
But
yeah.
I don't think he actually is. I don't think he believes.
And just thinking about filmmakers making movies about supernatural topics, right? Like The Exorcist is made by a devout Catholic, right?
Yep.
Like that is, I think, where we get some of that real deep fear, right? Like this kind, because it's like, it's one thing to be afraid in an agnostic way of just being killed or hurt or something. And it's another thing to be afraid of something metaphysical or something supernatural, and to truly live in that fear is I just think it's a different ball game, and that's why I don't get that existential scare that I get in The Exorcist, where it's like, oh dear God, I hope that's not true.
Well, that's
a great point.
Yeah, and Scott, I wanted to bring up, because I happen to be editing our episode. By this episode will have come out by the time we put this one out that we're recording right now. But I'm currently editing our episode on the movie Paranormal, which we just watched with our guest Joey Gallimore. And we actually talk about The Exorcist, and we ask the question within the podcast: is The Exorcist a Christian film? Which I think the answer is yes. It's like a beautiful, divinely inspired film with like a Christian message. Like, yeah, I mean, it's not palatable to the audience that's looking for these like alternatives that don't have, swearing or like, taking the Lord's name in vain. Obviously in The Exorcist, some very impolite, let's just say, things are said.
Your mother sucks cocks in hell.
But it's like,
people who don't want to watch for those reasons, they're putting their own blinders on. It doesn't mean it's not out there in the world.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's something that's like a really interesting point of conversation that I'm glad that as Boys Bible Study is progressing, we're starting to examine the fact that like the reason that we have, critiques of the Christian films we watch isn't because we think like Christians are stupid people. Like, in fact, just the opposite. I really reject that idea that like Christian films are cringe because like, oh, Christians, they have their like God and everything. For me, it's just the opposite. Like, I think as you are saying, that films dealing with the spiritual realm are often best covered by people who have done a broad internal exploration of their own, fears and have a deep relationship with God in some form, whatever that may be, or the unconscious or whatever that may be. And I think that a lot of the failings of the Christian pop culture that we review for the podcast is that, it has too like a one-dimensional view of Christianity. I think The Exorcist is like a beautiful, divinely inspired Christian film that like all Christians should watch. Like I think it's great.
It's a warning, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
And no, sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say to your initial point, The Exorcist really does have that true fear of God in it and fear of Satan, and you need both those things to have something that feels more powerful and real. And I think you're totally right that with Hereditary, there's fear of death and fear of harm, but there's no fear of the great beyond and all it entails.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Totally. And I think that that's why the parts of Hereditary that work are the family drama. And that's why, for me, my bullshit detector is less with that, because I think that those things work and that you feel them. But my bullshit detector really goes off with the supernatural stuff because it doesn't, I feel like there's not, there's no gravity to those elements. And so, they kind of just become surface or superficial fodder for basically to, so that it's not just a straightforward family drama, right? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. And, actually, this might be a good point to bring up a religious element that's reference in the film. I actually think that discussing this kind of ties in exactly to what we were saying.
Yeah.
And which is the invocation of the idea of spiritualism. Just like a very brief, like essentially like Wikipedia intro to spiritualism. It was sort of like a pop religion philosophy that was very popular in around the turn of the 20th century, coincidentally around the same time as the invention of the Ouija board. And although I don't know if there's a direct link between the two, I would imagine that like they sort of arose out of the same like point in time of like the spiritual situation of the United States in like around the year 1900. Spiritualism was a belief that you could talk to the dead. The idea of the seance as we know it in its modern form I believe was sort of perfected within the scope of spiritualism. Certain spiritual mediums that were thought in the United States to have this power could become big celebrities. There were actually some. I need to look up their names because there were these two girls, the Fox
there was
sisters.
The gorgeous, and then there was one really gorgeous woman who was named like Cora Scott.
Cora
or
Scott,
something.
yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And these were people who combined their sort of like feminine charisma with their ability to like be known as spiritual mediums and thus became celebrities.
Proto influencers,
yes,
if you will.
Yes. I do think that's true because I think there was something to be said. And I wouldn't doubt that there were like male figures in this as well. I don't, I'm certainly not an expert on the history of it, but I think that there's something to be said about the fact that these like innocent sisters, or on one hand, this like very beautiful woman, there's something about like the idea of, the feminine like intuition of like spiritual matters, or like the feminine ability to like access like the chaotic realm or something, like combined with the idea of talking to the dead, that just activated something in the popular consciousness and made these people into celebrities. So, and we can talk more on that, but this is to say that like, as I'm saying this, I'm literally thinking that like, maybe there actually is something kind of brilliant of the way Hereditary invokes spiritualism, because I find spiritualism in general to be kind of like a shallow and poppy and kind of like sacrilegious ability to connect with the divine. And I don't know, maybe there is something to say to link that with Hereditary.
I would say that when you were talking, what struck me is that it's like, okay, I think at the basis of I think spiritualism is motivated by grief, right? Because spiritualism is all about talking to disembodied souls, right? It's about being able to speak with your loved ones who are dead. So in the context of the film, I feel like it does feel kind of brilliant that like that's the kind of, that's the mode in which the satanic stuff is happening, is in this like grief motivated practice. However, someone like Harry Houdini would say this is a bunch of hocus pocus.
Yes.
And it's no good, and you guys are fakers just like me. So then it rings false again for me, because I'm like, if it is just people not talking to the divine, right? It doesn't have a relationship with the source, so to speak. But more just like dead people. I don't know. Something's up.
Definitely. I think that I will say that probably the supernatural element of Hereditary that made the most impact on me, and when I just like go in my mind's eye to like my impressions about the movie, this is like the first thing that comes up, is the scene where Annie runs into Joan in the parking lot, and Joan is really in this ecstatic kind of like flighty mood.
Yes,
and she's saying
that's
like
major.
Yeah, and she's saying like, no, you need to come.
Y'all, I'll
over
be
right
back
now.
in 2 minutes. I'm so sorry. My weed guy came way sooner than I
that's
thought.
okay. We'll keep talking. That part where she runs into Joan in the parking lot, and Joan is in this like ecstatic mood. She almost seems like mentally ill, which is to say that mental illness is like a huge theme in the film. She's in this what's the word I'm looking for? She's in this state, like a manic state. That's the word I'm looking for.
She's in a hysteria, right?
Hysteria,
She's completely hysterical, and right, like even her husband's like typing up those emails that are so funny and clunky.
Yeah, those are funny.
Being like, my wife is losing her mind. He has no unread emails, dude. Like I was like, I've never seen a cleaner fucking inbox. It's literally just the grave and then that one.
Mary, I have a confession to make. I am 100% up on my emails. I never have unread
Whoa!
emails.
Can you teach me, dude?
It's-
I have like 3,000 emails. Like, I actually, it's a mental illness that I have. Like, I'm an email hoarder.
I think mine is too. I think it's on a spectrum. You want to be in the middle of where both of us are. I don't think either
We're
of us
not
are in our
well.
right mind. Neither of us are well. I will say, just as an aside, I don't want to lose this thread, but maybe another one of the best parts of Hereditary was the way that it demonstrated the psychic warfare of sending emails. I've never
Yes.
seen like online communication handled in such an accurate way that it didn't take you out of the film. Even like the sun going on Facebook, like it really did make Facebook seem like cold and godless and like evil in a way that I like really appreciated. I thought that was kind of true. So I definitely give the movie that.
Maybe one of the scarier parts of the movie is getting an email about how they're just circling back around to see if you finish the thing that indeed you are responsible for finishing.
I had a David Lynch style subconscious shudder when you said circle back. Something.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's the point. I do think then that that is something, you know, we could say that's one of the most successful elements of this film is, when she gets the email that's like, or even that voice message that's like, so, you know, you're obviously like in our prayers. And by the way, like, what do you think about extending the show? And that was really psychically damaging.
The horror of the action item.
Yes.
It's really explored in depth.
Yeah, seriously. But no, that is to say that like what we were talking about, which was like the fact that spiritualism is godless and like impure, and it's come out of the selfishness of grief, which isn't to say that like
Right.
I don't understand why a grieving
We get
person,
it.
of course. Oh my
No,
God.
It makes total sense. I mean, the fact that death is what it is for the living is, you know, a nearly unmanageable or unfathomable fact,
Yes.
right? So to be driven to write a madness, it's just for me, it's like, okay, is it madness,
Mm-hmm.
or is it magic, right? It's like, and I just feel like the film doesn't know, and it doesn't bother to know. In the same way that like a movie like Us does not bother to understand its own logic or its origins.
I
right?
didn't see
It's
that.
just-
I would love for you to bring that up when Scott returns. I did not see that
Yeah.
film, but I will say that I find that to be something that happens in a lot of contemporary horror films, even like art, especially even like the art horror films, the acclaimed art horror films. A lot of them look great, do some things with scares that are, you know, really compelling, especially the first time you watch it. I mean, first time I watched Hereditary, there were parts that I was watching with like my eyes covered, which like doesn't normally
Yeah.
happen to me anymore, like as a seasoned horror fan. But I again, haven't seen Us, but what you're saying does not surprise me because I find that to be true of a lot of movies.
Have you seen
category.
The Witch?
Yes, I like The Witch.
I love The Witch.
yeah.
For me, The Witch like really nails it. Like it's like
that's true.
Like it nails the balance of the family drama and the magic.
Yeah. Yes.
And also the kind of there's the idea that like, right, we don't know whether or not these things are actually happening to this character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert, until the end. When you have the legend, what's his name? Black Phillip, you
Right.
know, coming out there and just saying the damn thing. So and like also talk about symbols. It's like the crow gnawing on the mother's nipple is like,
yeah, that part's good. That part's really good.
Oh my fucking God. It's like, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's a really good
know what I
point.
mean?
Maybe movies in this particular contemporary category, maybe The Vavavitch is like one of the ones that like really nails the combination between
gets
like
it.
yeah, it gets the combination between making a really well done aesthetically driven film while also leaving some room to mystery and to the imagination and having a sense of its own logic.
It has real fear of God and fear of the devil in it.
Yeah, that's true too.
Definitely. There's terror. Yeah, there's that deep terror in that movie. Not to compare to A24 movies, but
Sure.
you know,
But hey, you know, they're setting a
not
standard.
to pit them
of-
against each other.
they're setting a standard right now, you know, for better or worse. I think that the A24 films are where what a lot of people associate with contemporary artistic filmmaking. A lot of those aesthetics are being driven out of that company. So there's something admirable about that, but also there is something that I'm like, I kind of, anytime like a sort of boutique type of aesthetic becomes really popularized, it makes me wish that there were alternatives,
Right.
Sure.
What do you think about, I haven't seen this movie, but Mary brought up Us, the film. What do you think about that one, Scott?
Oh, I enjoyed it a lot. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I
Damn.
didn't think it was
Scott,
as
we're on opposite ends of the spectrum here.
Oh my
We just
god.
disagree, my man.
Well, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say that I didn't think it was as. Did you like Get Out?
I loved Get Out. Yeah, Get Out's so good. Yeah, and really fucking scary.
Yes. Get Out, I thought really was really well thought out, and everything made sense for the movie and pushed it forward and did a great job having like a lot of metaphorical stuff happen, but also upfront stuff happening too, that all worked together and was scary. Us felt a little bit more like it would be fun to have this in here and this in here and this in here.
Yeah.
And they threw it all together. But the thing is, Jordan Peele, even just when he was doing comedy before these movies, borders on scary sometimes anyway, which I think like the best comedians do. Like Tim and Eric certainly do that all the time, where it's like, are you trying to scare me or make me laugh? And I think having that ability is really helpful for making scary things. So I think a lot of the imagery in Us really made a lot of sense. But when I was like reading what the things were supposed to mean afterward, I was like, okay, I don't really buy it. But I had a lot of fun watching it. I actually just watched it for the first time like in the past 2 months.
Oh, damn. I mean, Tim Heidecker is so good.
Yeah.
In that movie, he's like
Absolutely.
such a legend. Yeah, it just to me seems like a movie where and I don't need things to be like, I don't want to be misconstrued as this like, person who needs this, all of the logic to be sound. It's like, I loved Darren Aronofsky's Mother, which is a completely incoherent masterpiece of mania, in which absolutely nothing makes any sense.
Yeah. Which is actually what I didn't like about it. Yeah, I didn't like it. But it's interesting that you bring it up with that point, because I was accepting of all the logic not really fitting in Us. I was just kind of like, okay, rolled my eyes, but had fun with it. Whereas with Mother, every time that was happening, I was like, you think you're so smart.
I thought he was like, I had no idea what I'm doing in this movie. Like, he's just like I really feel like he was like, oh, I don't know, like there's a riot now, like the baby, it's like I feel like he's just like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like, to me, it's like Mother is like a camp classic because it's so cuckoo fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And Us isn't very campy, and Hereditary is a little buttoned up. Midsummer, right, feels a little more unhinged.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm like, yes, please.
I think
a bit more.
I tend to agree with that. And I also want to echo your point, Mary, which is like the exact way I feel about films, which is like, I am the exact opposite of someone who feels like loose ends need to necessarily be tied up in a film. In fact, in the very beginning of this conversation, we were praising the original Wicker Man for like being the exact opposite of that. And I like brought that up as like a neat and fun contrast to even some of the parts of Hereditary that felt like they needed to explain themselves or cite their sources. Where the fuck was I going with this? Who cares? People don't need to explain their shit. It's fine. I like it. Oh yeah, I remember what I was gonna say, because I feel the same way about pop songs, and because we write pop songs together, and we've had this discussion too. But like the best pop songs, they also sort of like take things from your like unconscious, like the collective unconscious. They pull words out, and a lot of the best pop songs, if you look at them head on, you read a sentence and you're like, that doesn't really mean anything.
Totally
does
incoherent.
Right. And I think that there can sometimes, obviously there's no one rule for anything, but I think that can sometimes be true of films as well. And I think I like art in both categories. That it the question that it answers 100% is the fact that like there is a human relationship with the divine, and a lot of the other details are not left, tied up, are not answered in a satisfying way necessarily. And I think that combination is what is a through line of all the art that I consider my favorite.
Right. Like, I would argue that, like, I don't know, like, my belief system is that, like, something's up. I don't know what is up, but I will say with a degree of certainty that something is up.
Something's up. I think we can agree on
Something's
that.
up. I think we can all agree here. Something's up. And I feel like
I'm with ya.
artwork that doesn't acknowledge that something's fucking up. Then it does, like, I'm like, man, just wait till you realize that something's up. Like, you get born again and something being up.
Oh,
you
man.
know,
Every godless liberal director needs to get born again ASAP.
into the my new religion, which is that something's up.
Something's up.
You know what though? As far as being aware that something's up, that's also why something like Hereditary still works for me too. Even though I don't think Ari Aster believes in God or has that real fear of God and the devil, because I do inside of me. So like, if you throw in
Right.
any type of occult stuff, it's already working for me. Yeah.
Well, actually, and Scott, because
That's a good point.
I do have a foot in there with you, because we talked about this also in the episode about the Christian film Paranormal. We talked about how they used the Ouija board in that film, and we just like talked about the mystique of the Ouija board, because like in the Christian pop cultural context, the Ouija board is a terrifying thing, but it's literally
terrifying.
like
I can't even, like,
Right.
as a child, like, just the experiences I had, bolstered by my, like, extremely religious father being like, do you know what you've done? You have
Yeah.
awakened, it's like horrifying.
Yeah. And so I think that there's something to be said about that, Scott, just on its face, because on its face, the Ouija board is literally a plastic board game that is copyrighted by Hasbro. It's like one of the objects like that on its face has some of the least mystique of anything that holds so much sway in the supernatural, like popular consciousness. But it is like a totem of like extreme fear. And that a lot of that has to do with our own personal context. And I mean, yeah, like Hereditary, I would never have been able to watch as a Christian kid. I tried to watch one of the first movies I ever tried to watch with a friend was Carrie, like, the adaptation of the Stephen King film. And there's a scene right in the beginning of Carrie where like you can see the reflection of Jesus in the mirror, and then the strings go tweet, 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 and then like the mirror cracks. And I was like, turn this off. Can't watch this. I like made my friend turn it off. I was too scared.
Wow.
And obviously Hereditary would have just ruined my life.
I
at
can't.
that
I
age.
really can't even imagine seeing it when I was like 13 or something.
I would have
I think
had
the
to go to
seance
therapy.
scenes are the scariest part for me.
Yes,
Like, those are
yes.
the parts where I'm like legitimately like when the cup moving. Like, even last night I was like, is the cup moving on its own? And then it like does, and I'm like, no. It's like
Yeah.
that's like I'm like that's actually what's that. Yeah, the seance part is definitely the scariest part, because it does stir up some of my the ingrained horror of
Yes.
opening up those types of communications.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are the scary parts. All the like bonkers shit at the end. That's just fun and exciting to me. It's not scary anymore at that point. It's just like bananas, and I'm just like on a roller coaster at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just.
Do we like the naked people?
Yeah, I do. I always
I like
appreciate
them.
that.
I like them.
I like them. I have a firm belief that every movie needs to have full frontal nudity in it. I've
agree.
defended this point. I've said on the record multiple times that I really don't see the point of making a movie if you're not going to have full frontal nudity in it. Like, that's what cinema's meant to do. This is why I'm a huge fan of the director Pasolini. My favorite film of his, Arabian Nights, is remarkable because there's like 120 characters in the movie, and which is massive as it is, and somehow he finds an opportunity for all of them to get naked. It's really remarkable. I've never seen so many characters get naked in a film, and I was like, well, obviously then this is one of the best films ever made. Like,
Yeah.
that is an objective criteria upon which you can judge
On the
a film.
nudity scale,
Yes.
right? It's off the chain.
Hereditary passed the Ash test, I would say. We've heard of the Bechdel test. The Ash test is their full frontal in the film, and yeah, it does have it. And so I absolutely appreciate that about this film.
It's like Hereditary, Bad Lieutenant. I will just say that I have a like 6 foot tall like Italian like bus poster of Bad
Ooh.
Lieutenant where Harvey Keitel is fully frontally
Oh my
nude.
gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's right.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So cool.
It was in my like 8x8 room.
Wow. Have y'all seen the movie Rare Exports?
No.
Yes, I actually saw the movie in theaters about the Santas, the bad Santas.
Yeah, and then there's that point where they're like outside in the winter night, and it's just like, I don't know, 100 naked old Santas.
Oh,
Yes,
fuck. That's
yeah.
That's next on the list. I had not even
Ash,
heard
I
of
think
that
you're
movie.
really gonna like that movie. That movie's sick.
Yeah, agreed. We agreed.
I saw that at like a Lemley.
Very enjoyable.
We agree, finally. We can agree on one thing, and that's fully naked old Santas.
Yep. Go off.
Absolutely.
Well, with that said, we've had a great discussion so far. I think we should conclude, and I wonder if anyone else has something they wanted to add to. Any final thoughts on Hereditary or this, the subjects that we've broached in this conversation?
Oh, I had a question. I didn't know if either of you knew about the 2 books that they do open up in Hereditary. I
Notes on
assume they're-
spiritualism.
Yeah, Notes on Spiritualism and Invocations. Both those seemed very
I don't know that
broad.
either are real.
I don't think they're real, which is very sad because I think that
because he could have just had the Goetia
right.
Totally.
in the movie.
But it's like it's one of those things where like, so as someone who's really into like occult books and like grimoires in general, I find that there's always this fantasy that like out there is a book that ties everything together, that there is a book that someone's written that purports to be able to do real magic. And like actually the Goetia is a great one. It's absolutely a grimoire because if you read the Goetia in the beginning, like there's like, I'm opening it now, there's literally like a 10-page section. Granted, a lot of it is in like Greek, but like it purports that if you read it and if you do the special things, if you have the perfume that you need, if you have the wand that you need, if you have things that you can literally conjure the demons that are in this book.
You got to learn Greek.
Yes, I have to learn Greek. I would say once we hit the $1,000 tier on Patreon, what I'm going to do is I'm going to learn ancient Greek and conjure, and I'm going to do a live stream where I conjure whatever demon our patrons request.
And then you can read the Bible in its original completed form too.
Yes.
Wow.
Which former guest of the pod, Dr. Greg Salyer, pointed out to me that he did just that. And it actually really shook his faith because he started to realize that like, although the Bible is like artistically true, that it's literally like, it's a literary combination of scraps of like texts of Greek. There is no Bible.
Yeah, yes. And I have a very smart dear friend who went through that exact same experience too.
Wow. Oh, you did mention that to me one time when we were chatting. That's so cool.
We're going to have him on sometime.
Oh yeah, I'd love. Oh, that would be a fun convo. We will definitely have him on in the future. So yeah, there is no Bible. There are books you can read that will let you conjure demons, but they are not the book in Hereditary called Invocations. I do not believe exists. Go around, write scary words on your walls. Scary roommate.
Satoni. We didn't even
Satoni. We didn't even talk about Satoni Soprano. I think they were just words fucking like pulled at random from like various grimoire texts. Zazas.
Zazas. Yeah, I wrote that down. I was
Anyone
like, here
loves
we go.
Zazas Gabor. Satoni Soprano. These are some of the the invocational texts that you need to know to understand Hereditary.
We're gonna have to have a seance to talk to Tony Soprano himself and just like ask
Shit.
about behind the scenes things on Sopranos.
Holy shit, that's such a good idea. Oh man. Actually, we talked about doing a Ouija board episode. I don't think we'll be able to pull it in time for Halloween, but the Ouija board is timeless, so we'll see what we do.
We'll do it for Christmas or something.
Oh, a Christmas Ouija reading. Yeah, what do you think, Mary? Anything else? Any other thoughts about the film?
Any final words? I mean, Ann Dowd, that performance is so good.
She kicks ass. Yeah.
She kicks ass. It's like she's so, especially when like you had mentioned, when she's in the parking lot being
She's like
so turbo.
But it's
I
real.
know, it's like, oh my God. Yeah, she's being so turbo. And I love it. So, yeah, I mean, I give it, 5 out of 5 Satonis, and
yeah. Let's give it the Boys Bible Study rating. I'm glad that you're so ready to go
Okay.
with the Boys Bible Study rating. Okay, let's go. We got a 5 out of 5 Satonis
Dang.
from our special guest Mary. What else do we got? I'm gonna give it 10 big bong rips with my crush, my high school crush Peter. And
he's so hot. Is that okay?
it's okay. First of all, he is.
Can I?
He
Can I,
was 18 or 19 in the film.
All right, baby.
And he's 23 now. Like I said, we were texting last night as we were both separately watching it, and I was just like, I think I could save him. Like honestly, I think all he needs is the love from one very special podcaster, and he just needs a place to go that's not his fucking family's house.
Yeah,
Jesus
honestly,
Christ.
his mom is so rude. She's like, ugh, I tried to burn you alive. Get over it, sweetie. It's like,
Yeah, and I'm sorry.
it's like, yeah, what?
Okay, fundamental thing. I'm sorry. She's a fucking dumbass. You don't send your daughter to some random high school kid's house without her fucking EpiPen.
Dude, you
Why
don't
would you
send
do
her.
that?
She doesn't want to go. The brother doesn't want her to go. It literally is the mom's fault.
Yes, it's the mom's fault.
I do actually find that the most unbelievable thing in
Yes,
the
it
movie.
is.
That,
Yes, it
that
is.
is something that I think is directly an error that I accept because it moves along the plot. But
Yeah.
like,
Right.
that's so unrealistic. And even like Peter just being like, go eat chocolate cake. No, he would
No,
not. If
would
he
never
loves
happen.
his sister
Never
at
happen.
all, he would be well aware that there's a pretty decent
She
chance
would be
there's
avoiding
nuts in that
food.
thing.
yeah, she would be.
Oh,
Yeah, she
wait,
would
we
know
didn't
that
even talk
too.
about the nut pile at the party.
Yeah, the fucking. I love that.
which has never happened.
Astor's nuts, as that technique is known.
When you see the nuts, you know that they will be
When there's a nut
used again.
when there's a nut allergy presented in the first 5 minutes of the movie, you know that there will be a scene 25 minutes later where someone is just literally cutting up tree nuts like on a cutting board.
The rule of D's nuts.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, my rating's gonna be D's nuts. One pile of these nuts.
That's fair.
Yeah, great movie.
Yeah, great movie.
Yep. This was so fun, guys.
So much fun. So much fun.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. Great. We should have you on again for like a conventional format episode, but in the meantime, this
It would
was
be
so
an
much
honor.
fun.
And yeah, thank you so much. This was great.
I will say then, Mary, thank you so much for joining us on Boys Bible Study. On behalf of myself, Ash, my co-host Scott, our very special guest, Mary. By the way, how can we listen to the music? Your URLs, I'll link it. I'll just link it because it's hard to say
Okay,
the URL.
I know. My name is it's impossible to Google. My handle is overly complicated. My songs are titled things like "Oh my God." It's like I'm literally ungoogleable.
You are a truly
and yet-
esoteric artist.
It's like but I want to reach the people,
We're going to put a link to your Bandcamp and other things in the description of this episode.
Yeah, my
Anyone can
YouTube,
listen.
all that.
Yes, so people
Yeah.
can watch your videos and listen. So with that in mind, on behalf of myself, Ash, my co-host Scott, our very special guest today, Mary, we would like to say, peace be with you.
And also with you.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I feel your loving me, it's coming from within. Oh my God, my devotion is so unwavering. Divine emotions when you enter me. Every day you take me high with your love, and I'd rather be. A bunch of bad bitches is a coffin. Everyone is always up to something. Call me anything, don't call me good for nothing. I just need a little loving. I got a feeling that it's all going down tonight. I'm hoping that we'll be holding each other tight. Whatever you put out is gonna come back to you. I got your messages about the rendezvous. Want to kiss